What's up guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to talk about training principles. At least we're going to talk about the training principles that have been around for a long time, and the fact that they've been around for a long time because they have enduring value. That is, we like them, and because they've been around for a long time, they've been proven to be good, maybe. Anyway, let's get into it. Well, I came across another article, this time an article on training peaks. And this article is titled, From Fads to Fundamentals, the Enduring Value of Proven Training Methods. And ultimately it talks about the Lindy effect. And the Lindy effect is basically a concept that suggests that the life expectancy of non-perishable things, so ideas, in this case training ideas and training principles, it increases with age. So the longer an idea has been around, the less likely it is to be discarded. Now, obviously it is a heuristic rather than a rule, because I'm sure we can all think of a couple of things that have been around or were around way too long when we should have done away with them. But let's keep it on training, because we've seen a lot of new ideas, a lot of new training ideas come out over the last couple of years, let's say. And if you can think of any of these training ideas, why don't you go ahead and drop them in the comments. But the article brings up things like fasted training, low volume with high intensity, the Norwegian method. I'm thinking of the whole barefoot running craze. And look, it's not necessarily to say that any of those things are bad, and I'm sure that they all work for some people. But the reason that a training idea has some enduring quality is because it probably works for a lot of people, right? It works for the masses. And you and I, we are part of the mass. So that's to say that the ideas that have been around for a long time, they will probably work for the average person. Now, the article is also quick to point out that this doesn't mean that new ideas are a bad thing, right? Everything old was once new. So it's important to keep that in mind. But the article talks about two important training methods that you and I probably use today, or at least we incorporate some of the ideas of these methods into our own training. And the first is the Mihaly Igloy method. Now, Igloy was a hotshot runner in the 1930s. He won multiple Hungarian championships before becoming a coach. And when he did become a coach, he significantly improved the runners that he coached. And in his case, these were the runners of the Hungarian Army Club. And Igloy's method primarily focused on intervals. You know intervals. You probably did an interval workout sometime in the last week or two. Now, the way he coached athletes to run intervals probably isn't the same as the way you are running intervals, but there are a lot of similarity. Now, Igloy's training, apparently, if we listen to some of the athletes that he coached, focused on a lack of planning. So sometimes he would have his athletes run short intervals, sometimes medium, sometimes long. Sometimes those intervals would be run at an easy pace, sometimes at a breakneck pace. Now, he determined which athlete was going to run what distances at what speeds based on how the athlete felt on any given day, and of course based on the event that they were training for and where they were in their training cycle at the time. So what we get from this training are three pillars. The first is interval training, that is frequent short efforts at varying paces depending on the distance. The Igloy method also focuses on adaptability, and we hear this a lot, right? You can't turn on YouTube and listen to someone that talks about running without seeing that we have to remain fluid. We have to be adaptable. If we don't feel like something one day, we have to listen to our body. And of course, missing one workout isn't going to tank the whole training plan, right? So we got adaptability from Igloy. And then there's a focus on technique. That's the third pillar of Igloy's method. So Igloy would encourage good form throughout his intervals. But also the reason that we run intervals is because that naturally brings out our best form, right? We run the most efficiently when we're running faster. Now, we tend to get a bit sloppy when we're running slow. At least I do. And then the next training principle person, our favorite Kiwi, Arthur Lydiard, pioneered the whole periodized training. So that's focused on base training, hill training, anaerobic training, and sharpening before the event. And I missed one. Oh, tapering. Tapering was pioneered by Arthur Lydiard, or at least making the taper an actual phase of our training. I'm sure people knew that they had to rest a bit before their main event before that. Now, Arthur Lydiard also believed in very high volume training, and he would often insist that his runners run 100 miles a week or go out for 22-mile long runs on really hilly terrain. But we got three important pillars out of Arthur Lydiard. And that first one is base training. And according to Lydiard, base training is basically about running a lot of miles at a low intensity to build that aerobic base. And that's the base from which you build on everything else. The second concept that you've definitely heard of is periodization. And that's where we break up our training segments into base, hill training, anaerobic, and then the taper. Now, you may not fall into those exact sections, right? If you're running a marathon, you may not do much anaerobic work, but the point is that you are probably training by breaking your training up into different stages, even if you don't know it. If you are following a training plan, that training plan is probably broken up more than you think. And the third pillar that we got from Arthur Lydiard is pace judging. And Lydiard would encourage his athletes to judge their pace accurately. Of course, this is a very valuable skill, and most of us, me included, don't have this skill because we usually run with a watch. What does that watch do? That watch tells us our exact pace at all times. But if you could run without a watch, you could learn how to interpret how your body feels when it's running at a certain pace, then you would know during your event what pace or what effort you needed to hold on to in order to run the time that you were going for, right? It's a pretty valuable skill. Look, it's especially valuable at the Chicago Marathon when you run through that tunnel at the beginning of the race. Don't know if you heard, but those GPS satellites aren't getting their signal down to your watch. So unless you know how fast you should be running and what that feels like, you may start out a little too fast, which would be worse, or not fast enough, which would be bad, but not as bad as starting too fast. So look, I think we can all agree that we use some of those concepts in our training, right? Even if you're not training for an actual race, you're familiar with these concepts. And perhaps if you're a new runner, you're very open to the idea of when you're not feeling like going for a run, you just don't go for a run. And if you want to run fast, you know that intervals are a key way to get you to run faster. So guys, I want to hear from you. Look, I know you already do most of these things that we've talked about, some of these old tried and true methods. But what I really want to hear about is if you have tried some of these other methods, some of the newer methods. So fasted running. Now, I've got to be honest, I guess I do fasted running. That is, when I get up in the morning, I go for a run before I eat breakfast. And technically that is fasted running. But I guess the difference is that I'm not doing it with the intention of getting better. Like, I don't think I'm getting better by running fasted. I'm sure if I ate something before my run, I would have a better run. I just don't like to eat as soon as I wake up. And that's the only time that I can go for a run. What other ones did we have? Low volume, high intensity. Has anyone tried that? Personally, that isn't for me at all. I don't like the sound of it for two reasons. The first reason is that I like to run, a fair bit. I do like going out almost every day, 6 days a week. And second of all, look, I'm not really a fan of high intensity. It hurts. Now, I don't mind doing high intensity when I have to, like when I'm training for a race. But if I had my choice, I would just go out and plod along and have a good time and enjoy my run. Oh, and the article does mention that there's also been a lot of excitement around zone 2 training and ketones. You know what? I've never tried ketones. I see a lot of influencers on Instagram chugging a little bottle of ketone IQ before they go out for their workouts. Does it really work? I don't know. If you take ketones before your workout, drop a comment and let me know how it works for you. And then of course there's zone 2 training, which I'm not sure what the article means about there being a lot of excitement around it. I think zone 2 training is ideal for that base building. We want to keep a low intensity for a long time. But guys, let me hear from you. Let me hear from you if you have got maybe sucked into some training methods that just didn't work for you in the end. I'd love to hear about it. Luckily, I never got into that barefoot running craze because I think I probably would have hurt myself. I think my big heavy body just needs a bit of cushion. I know that I feel a lot more comfortable when I have a lot more cushion under my shoes. Well guys, I know this has been a very short video today, but if you have made it till this point in the video, first of all, thank you. Second of all, we mentioned Arthur Lydiard, so let's put a Kiwi in the comments, just to let me know that you've made it till this point of the video. And with that, it's Matt B. This has been a video on, I don't know, what's it been on? Pillars of training, the Lindy effect, and how we can use it to evaluate tried and true training practices. All right, be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.